right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Let's start that conversation on manifestos and economy right now. Let me introduce my guests real quick, beginning from my immediate left. Joy Kiro, an economist. Thank you so much for making time for us. David Osian, CAS Moited, which is the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Enterprise Development. Asante sana for making time, Waziri.
Thank you.
And Reginald Katzutu, CEO, Amana Capital, is joining us online from London. Thank you so much for making time. Let's start off with the elephant in the room. And in fact, it's part of the stories that are on the dailies. On the Standard, it's on page 4. Raila plan to revive the textile industry, which has divided opinion. So, Joy, I'll start with you on this. So, there's been a proposal that maybe we should have locally manufactured clothes. There are those who are saying that bringing in Mitumba employs more than 2 million people. 8,000 containers have been brought in every year. Are those two interchangeable? If you decide to get local manufacturing and local production, will it phase out the Mitumba people or will it be complementary to them?
Thank you very much, Trevor. I think before I answer your question, let's put this into perspective. Let us see where we are coming from. In 1963, right after independence, that's the same strategy that we started to pursue, that is an import substitution strategy for economic development and growth of the manufacturing sector. Exactly what we are talking about today. But it didn't work. So at the times of Kikomi, Raymonds, and all that.
Yeah.
Now, what happened? Why did it not work? Because we realized that strategy of import substitution was not suitable for us because it was capital intensive and we were capital poor. So we went into a more liberalized approach in terms of trade. And we started saying, okay, whatever we don't have a competitive advantage on, we'll buy from outside. And to be honest, the biggest threat to the textile industry today in Kenya is not just Mitumba. Mitumba is a very small thing. It is made in China new. It's made in China. And that is a trade agreement. And the truth is, if you try to do that, you'll be provoking a trade war. Because China isn't here to please Kenyans. China is here to care for China's business and take care of China's interests. And Kenya should. So they will ask, okay, fine. You want to put tariffs or you want to bar me from exporting clothes to you. Then how do you reciprocate? What do I get in return? Because if you cannot give them something worthwhile, you're going to be provoking a trade war, which is going to hurt you more.
Yeah.
So the truth is, the Mitumba business, looking at it, should be looked at it from the whole perspective of the trade policy that you are pursuing. Mm-hmm. And be sure that whatever policies we put in place or we want to pursue do not put us in a jeopardized position with our trading partners and development partners.
Yeah, but Rwanda did it. Rwanda banned importation of second-hand clothes. Second-hand
clothes, yes. You can ban the second-hand clothes because the stakeholders are your own people. And your own people, they are at your mercy.
Yeah.
If you tell them you're not going to wear second-hand clothes, with or without an alternative, it's up to you. Okay. They will judge you.
Okay. Let me bring in Reginald on this. Reginald, what are your thoughts? How do you revive the textile industry and also supplement with importation? Or do you kill one so that the other one grows?
Thanks, Trevor. I don't think you kill one, and I'm sure that is not from reading the 84-page manifesto. That is not the plan for the Azimio team to kill the Mutumba sector, as in on day one and ban Mutumba. I think they'll run complementary. But what they are trying to do is that instead of focusing energy on the Mutumba, if you look at what is more beneficial to the economy in terms of job creation, is we will invest more in local textile industry in the hope that the quality, the cost will be favorable enough for people to start buying clothes made in Kenya. And the Mutumba will die its own natural death. If you still want to go to Mutumba, you still go. It will now be a business decision. Does it make sense? Currently, Kenya is one of the largest exporters of textile to the US on the continent. They export close to 7.5 billion annually from the EPZ in Athi River under the AGOA. But Bangladesh on the other hand, exports close to 45 to 50 billion US dollars a year, also on textiles and all. So why can't Kenya export more of textiles? Number one, 80% of the inputs in the EPZs in the river mining are imported. So that's most of the thread, the apparel itself, the textile itself are imported. Then we just do the garment making and all, and we send. So we have the ability to do it. We have the ability to send quality things outside. So if you are to invest in this textile, one, you're saying, okay, there's no point of investing in industry which does not have a full domestic market, because then you are open to outside external exogenous shocks to an industry. So if you want to make an industry sustainable, it should have a certain level of domestic demand for it. So if you're going to grow your textile exports, and that which is the main agenda actually, to export finished goods, so export textiles, export clothes, then you are saying, how do we make our textiles more competitive? Yeah. Can we grow our cotton? Do we have the capacity to grow cotton in the country? Yes, we have had that capacity. What went wrong? Yeah, you look at small-scale farmers. We need to have large-scale farmers, but some of these cash crops can't be done at small scale because you lose economies of scale. It just doesn't make sense, and that has been the problem with Kenya's agricultural sector. It's so fragmented. So them going to say we want to revive the local industry, and then they have broken down the value chain of that whole, from cotton gin, spinning, weaving, knitting, garment production, wholesalers, resellers, and to consumers. So you realize it's not just the local consumer they're looking at, but they're looking at sorting out the whole value chain to enable our exports to be affordable, and also now build a small domestic demand for those goods away from Mutumbas. But Mutumbas will be with us for a while. But if they will die their natural death if they are successful in what they want to do.
Yeah. David, you've been interacting with these Mitumba people every other time. I've seen you even in the markets talking to them. When the Azimio leader says that we will ensure those who are importing Mitumba get the first hand to market goods which are going to be manufactured here, are those two things interchangeable?
Absolutely.
How?
But listen, I think what the Right Honorable Raila Odinga meant is very simple. Over time, and Reginald has captured it quite well as well. Over time, if we are able to create that ecosystem and improve the value chain of cotton and the textile industry, and develop the textile industry in Kenya, we will be looking at the possibility of our produce, of all our production being way cheaper. It will not make sense then to import. When you go to the United Kingdom, of course they still import from these other countries and everywhere. Only they import brand new. So you go to Primark, they import brand new. But when you go to Bangladesh, the home of cotton, when you go to India, majority of that population are able to wear their own clothes done in their country because of the surplus in production. I think what the manifesto, if I have read it right, and I think I have, what the manifesto is trying to do is to say, listen, guys, we have a country that has the favorable climate for cotton. I am just coming from Eldoret last week, and I went there to purposely visit Rivertex alongside other SMEs. Rivertex right now employs 1,000 people directly, and an extra 5,000, 7,000 people indirectly. You know, cross over the gate, there's Tracy selling her githeri. That's employment courtesy of Rivertex and her mother. Those indirect, employment opportunities created by Rivertex. The cost of cotton a year ago was 118 shillings a kilo. Today, because of lack of cotton globally, it is 428 shillings. Now, we in Kenya are falling over ourselves on avocado because of the market and the returns that market promises. What I think the manifesto has looked at is the possibility then of taking advantage of the global market for our local farmers When you give them subsidies and you give them seeds and you give them the right variety of cotton, like BT cotton, which gives them advantage of getting more kilo per acre of the cotton, then you are going to not only ensure that you have kept 1,000 people at work in Rivertex, in Eldoret, but also you have started to create in a country a backbone that will provide not only cotton and subsequently textile, but also assured jobs.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, we were joining the president in EPZ, which is under our ministry, as Maersk was launching its plant in Kenya. Sadly, they have to import the cotton that they use or the semi-finished products. Now, we have to then look at ourselves and say, fine, we are going to go into this textile industry. We hope to do the whole value chain, but where will we specialize as a country? Is it in weaving? Is it in spinning? Is it in yarning? What is it that we will be having comparative advantage in? But to say that Mitumba was meant to replace, I do not think it is even possible. And even if it were to pick up and the Ministry of Agriculture goes on an aggressive extension service, it will take 5 to 10 years for us to start realizing the real profits of that cotton. And so during that time, it's fine. I think over time, what then that statement is saying is it will be more lucrative to buy cotton and textile locally, our finished products locally, than to bear the cost of importation. And I think that's what every country wants for itself, to be a producer, not an importer, but an exporter.
Yeah, so Joy, are we then jumping the gun here? Because it seems to me that then we should have started by fixing our cotton growing industry fast before we even imagine replacing this.
That's true, but also my question is, two things about Mutumba. But first, a question to Mheshimiwa.
Yes, ma'am.
You are saying that you want to make it possible for us to produce locally.
The president, Raila Odinga. Not me.
Okay. The president
I work for the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta.
The Azimio government wants to make it possible for us to wear Kenyan clothes, not imported clothes. How are they going to make the cost of production low? And secondly, does he know that Mutumba is, for a lot of people, Mutumba is choice. It's the only time we wear Gucci. It's the only time we wear high street fashion at affordable prices. Who is going to tell us that is wrong? We shouldn't do that. So there is space for all these things. I think what we need to do is to find, and the point is, nobody tries to compete with China in terms of textiles. You can't compete. Don't even try. But what is important is find a niche product that you say made in Kenya and package it as a pride good. Like, for example, let's create some value in our, some kind of a fashion segment of made of Kenya. Let's create some value around that, and that should be now a niche product. If you go to Kenya, you don't bring me a kimono made of Kenyan fabric, you haven't been to Kenya.
I think
don't bring
a niche product.
A niche product.
All these clothes.
Exactly, a niche product, pride. That's what we need, but not try to compete.
I think it would be only fair then to go through the 34-page manifesto, Dr. Ari. It would seem you haven't, because the 34-page manifesto speaks about the factors of production. In that 34-page manifesto, the Azimio candidate says they will reduce the cost of power. And yesterday, speaking at the Chamber of Commerce event, he said that even 9 cents per kilowatt hour is still high. We are going to look at the possibility of dropping it to 7 cents, which has started with our special economic zone in Naivasha, which, whereas the whole country has power at 15 to 18 cents per kilowatt hour, because of its proximity to Kengen, our special economic zone has enticed investors by providing energy at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. In that manifesto, they speak elaborately about how to get inputs for our farmers, seeds and everything else. In that manifesto, I think there is the promise of rural electrification and rural electricity expansion, which will ensure that all the ginaries across the country benefit from an infrastructure that works. In that manifesto, there is the talk about expanding the road network, the rural road network, to therefore ensure that the cotton can leave the farm and get to the ginaries, and from the ginaries to their destination. I agree that the level of sophistication that China has been able to gain in this sector, and China only imports the semi-finished products. But even with that, you will be interested to know that Kenya, who also imports semi-finished products for export, has done better than China in export by numbers. You would not believe that, but we have. And so this is just about their promise. Is it achievable? I think it is. Not immediately, though. So you will not see the end product of that promise or the manifestation of that manifesto within a year or two. To that extent, let's agree. The second thing I want to address, which Dr. has raised, is the middle class belief that Mudeu in Kitui knows about Gushi. They don't. The imagination that Onyango in Kibera or Madare knows about whichever brand you want to say, the big brands. No, they don't. They just know that this is a decent cloth for a decent price. Yes, the middle class love to then go and say, I'm wearing a Brioni, okay? Or I am wearing Gucci, or I am wearing, name it. But all these other guys, 85% of the Mutumba consumers in this country, I dare say even 95%, do not care a single hoot about the brand. They just want to know it looks and feels fine.
Yeah. Reginald, let me bring in on this conversation. And, economist David Ndii, who is a Ruto supporter, said that the plan to curtail importation of second-hand clothes was a misguided economic nationalism. He says the Mitumba debate is important because fundamentally it is about freedom and class. People dress to express themselves, to look and feel good. Many wear Mitumba not because they cannot afford the new clothes, but to wear fashion labels that they cannot afford or find as a new one. Do you agree with those statements, Reginald?
No, I don't. I think sometimes when people mix politics and economics, you end up being more politics than economics. And as my colleague has said, if you read the document, you will then realize that this is not for... I think when you asked, have you jumped the gun? I think it has been spinned politically to the extent that people are discussing the political utterances instead of discussing what is actually in the document.
Yeah.
In the document, it's not import substitution, but it is creating an industry or reviving a cotton industry, primarily for export. So if you look at the Azimio manifesto, if you read the whole document, you see how all these cogs are connected. And one key element of that cog is economic diplomacy, where they're trying to get markets in the region, in the East Africa region, now with DRC there, a big East Africa region, and globally. So they are looking at, we are already good at making garments. We are already exporting $7.5 billion worth of garments under AGOA. We are not limited. How do we scale that up? The main thing has been the costs, because we import 80%. So they've looked at that whole value chain and said, yes, it makes sense, because one, you get people who are making cotton again. It's a cash crop. You are creating labor-intensive employment, because you will still mechanize irrigation and all, but still use a lot of labor, because we have a lot of labor in the country. So it's not that capital intensive. You are creating jobs along that value chain. What I hope is that it's not the government that is going to go start opening their granaries and all that, but they will create an environment that attracts one private business to open those granaries, or get actually guys from India or Bangladesh who are coming to open the granaries here, because the guys from the Asian markets have a quota into the American market, into the European market. So if they set up a factory here to make the granary and even make clothes here using our local labor and our local cotton, they can circumvent that quota, because it's now rules of origin. It's now coming from Kenya. So I look at it as a cog that is being created, and the local market is actually a byproduct, as in, if we have a surplus, then the Mutumba market will die a natural death because they will have to get rid of this surplus. But the main aim, which we should be discussing, is there a market for textiles globally? Is there an opportunity for foreign direct investment in that sector? What needs to be put in place for us to attract that foreign direct investment, for those people to come and set up factories for granaries, for weaving and all that, to absorb the unemployment problem that we have, increase income and uplift our people from poverty. And in the at the same time, or by the way, we can actually now start seeing Mutumba dying a natural death, as people can now afford more quality clothes, technology transfer through FBI and all. So we need to look at it from that way and not discuss it from the political spinning that came out of what people heard the Prime Minister say, and without even reading the document.
Yeah. All right. We'll have to take a quick break here on Daybreak. When you come back, we're still talking about the manifestos and the economy. There's one on the economic growth. We'll talk about that as well in just a bit. The Social Protection Fund is also another issue where people are saying, is it sustainable in the long run? We'll talk about that in just a bit. We'd like to hear your views at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We're coming up back with your feedback in just a bit.